emotional richness, and I loved it. Definitely not my usual pick. I will always read whatever it is that she writes. Forgotten by history. Hello, I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas. I received many books as Christmas presents, and I plan to completely reorganize my bookshelves in January. I'll definitely be doing a video on that. Today, however, we'll focus on the books I want to prioritize reading in the new year. Personally, I don't like putting a number on my TBR, as in to be read list. For example, I don't like saying, oh, in 2025, I'm going to read 75 books. I know that works for others, and that's great, but for me, setting goals creates unnecessary pressure and takes away from that pure joy of reading. So honestly, I don't care about how many books I read, and I don't have any desire on counting them. What I do like is to reflect on reading plans and create draft reading lists. But even those get scratched and they change. And that's because I love the idea of grabbing a book on a whim, one maybe I hadn't planned to read, but that inspires me in that moment without any self-imposed guilt. I basically have just gone through my bookshelves and notes and picked out the books I know I will gravitate towards first. And that's it. That's my criteria, feeling that I'm being pulled by a particular book. As I said, books for me are all about a positive experience. And I just think if we read books we're excited about, we naturally read more. So there's no need to worry about numbers. So I'm splitting my list into two. One for contemporary fiction, which I will cover in this video, and one for classics, because I realized that I actually have quite a few classics I want to read next year, so one video would be too long for both. And then I might also do a shorter video on non-fiction. I don't read that much non-fiction, but when I was going through my target list, I counted 9 books, which I was surprised about. And I think that certainly qualifies for a video. So it may be a little bit shorter video, but I will likely to do a separate video on non-fiction TBR for 2025. So the 5 high priority books are in no particular order. Let me put them down actually, otherwise this will be difficult. Transcendent Kingdom by Gyasi. This novel was longlisted for Women's Prize for Fiction 2021, I believe. It follows a neuroscience PhD student struggling with the loss of her brother to addiction and also with her mother's severe depression. And the protagonist seeks answers through her research and her complex relationship with her Ghanaian and American upbringing, and also through her faith. The blurb on the cover says, Transcendent Kingdom is a searing novel about a family ravaged by forces both within and beyond their control. It is a story of love, loss, and inheritance, and the myriad ways we try to rebuild our lives from the rubble of our collective pasts. And I also have to read to you the write-up by Anne Patchett, which is on the back of the book. I would say that Transcendent Kingdom is a novel for our time, and it is, but it is so much more than that. It is a novel for all times. The splendor and heart and insight and brilliance contained in the pages holds up a light the rest of us can follow. Isn't this brilliant? I'm really looking forward to reading this. The second book on my priority list is Harda. This is dense historical epic by a Polish author, Elzbieta Cherezinska, and I will be reading this book in its original language. However, the book is available in translation, and in English it is titled The Widow Queen. I will include a picture of it next to me. This is supposed to be highly historically accurate novel about a real key female figure in medieval history of what is now Poland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. Świętosława, which was her name, was a Polish princess who became a queen of Sweden and apparently was ferociously intelligent and ambitious, and also she was a great strategist. She was one who wanted to shape her own destiny in the world that was ruled by men, and she was determined to secure power for herself. There are Vikings in here, kings, politicians, and I really like the idea of the author taking a real female figure who has been forgotten by history and putting her as the key character in a novel. Number 3 is The Wolf Border by Sarah Hall. This book I saw somewhere being compared to The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley-Heller, which I really enjoyed reading. I talked about it in my video on the books to be read in one sitting. This story follows a biologist, Rachel, who returns to her Northern England homeland to lead a wolf reintroduction project. And as she faces the challenges of the project, she also confronts her tragic past and the emotional complexities of reconnecting with her roots. So we have themes of nature, identity, and personal healing. Apparently, the prose is also quite lyrical. You can see why this could be mentioned when talking about The Paper Palace. I am very intrigued by this book. I have had a sneak peek into the first page and I loved it, and I had to put the book away very quickly to stop myself from continuing to read it, because I have 3 other books on the go at the moment that I have to finish first. This next book is definitely on my priority list because, as I have mentioned in my November wrap-up video, I fell in love with Atwood's writing through reading her short stories, which I came across by coincidence. I just found a copy of very old edition in a charity store, and the short stories in there are fantastic, and I really loved the way she writes. So I'll definitely be reaching for this one next. If you have not read this book and haven't watched the TV adaptation, I haven't. The book is set in a dystopian future where women are stripped of their rights and are forced to bear children for the ruling elite, and so they need to navigate this world of oppression and resistance. I don't want to know any more about this book than I have to. I'll be telling you more about it once I've read it. The next book has not yet been published, and if you watched my video on the best books of 2024, then you won't be surprised to hear that I am putting Abigail Dean's newest release on my priority list. It is titled The Death of Us. I don't know much more about it except that it is a psychological drama about the aftermath of a devastating event, which, Abigail Dean is the absolute queen of. And this devastating event binds 3 women. The book is described as a layered, gripping, and thought-provoking. Sounds like it's frankly tailor-made for me. I adore Dean's writing, and I will always read whatever it is that she writes. The book comes out on the 10th of April, if you're interested. And not that I am counting the days, but I cannot wait. And now moving on to all the remaining books I have in mind for 2025. Also priority, but slightly lower priority than the first 5 I've mentioned. Number 6 is Nicci French, The Last Days of Kira Mullan. This comes out on the 16th of January. I just automatically read anything by Nicci French. They are a duo. It is a husband and wife, both journalists. They have been writing crime. Actually, I think it is more psychological thrillers rather than crime or psychological dramas for the last probably 40 years, and I absolutely love what they produce together. I have read all of their 25 books, and to me they are masters not only in delivering a good psychological thriller, but Each of their books have also that emotional richness. They explore themes of trauma, memory, human relationships, and they usually have a nuanced character development. They are particularly famous for the Frida Klein series, but all of the books written by Nicci French, including their standalones, are fantastic. Especially if you're looking for psychological thriller with a bit more depth. Number 7 is Scaffolding by Lauren Elking. This is supposed to be quite an introspective and almost philosophical novel. It is a story of two couples living in Paris in the same apartment, but 50 years apart. I have been waiting for a copy of this book from my local library for a year and a half. So, yes, damn right, I'll be prioritizing this book. I have just seen that it is in transit finally to my local library, so I'm sure I'll be picking it up in the next few days. Let's hope it was worth the wait. Number 8 is Playing Games by Huma Qureshi. This book is another one that is in transit to my local library, which is why I can be sure I will be prioritizing it probably in January. This book is by a British author, Huma Qureshi, known more for her collection of short stories titled Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love. But Playing Games is a novel, and it is about two sisters, one successful lawyer, the other one struggling to make her ends meet. And I heard that it is examining complex family dynamics, relationship breakdowns, which are always very interesting to me, and also about creative ambitions. So let's see, I will let you know what the book is like once I've read it. Next book I have is Fresh Water for Flowers by Valerie Perrin. She's French, I believe. This is supposed to be a tender story of a cemetery caretaker in rural France. Her quiet life of loss and routine is appended by a visitor seeking answers to a long buried family mystery. It is supposed to be moving, it is supposed to be intimate, and also it is supposed to be one of those books where characters are neither all good or all bad. And I guess that's true of all people, and this is the reason why I am quite drawn to this book. I have been eyeing it up for a year now, so I'm looking forward to reading it next year. Number 10, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This book is science fiction, which is definitely not my usual pick, but from time to time, I like to take myself out of the comfort zone. And I have heard so many good things about this book, I plan to give it a go. It is written by the author of The Martian. I saw the movie based and I was very impressed by it. So I actually got a copy of this book for my son for Christmas. And as soon as he is finished with it, I will be reading it too. And while we are on the topic of going outside comfort zone, I'm also eyeing up the Games of Thrones. I have not watched the TV adaptation, so I feel like I still have a good chance to really enjoy the book. And also, I almost feel like I want to see what all the fuss is about, is it really worth the hype? And the other book outside of my comfort zone is The Witcher. Same scenario, I haven't watched the TV adaptation, and I am lucky in that I am able to read it in its original language, which is always more fun. For those of you who don't know, The Witcher was written by a Polish writer, Andrzej Sapkowski. Having said all that, I think I will need to find the right moment. Maybe in between all the classics I plan to read, which I'll be talking about in my next video. Number 11 is Panenka by Ronan Hession. This is by the author of Leonard and Hungry Paul, which was one of the best books I read in 2024, as mentioned in my last week's video. I loved that book. I loved Hession's soft writing, and I cannot wait to read his other works. I think he also has a book called Ghost Mountain, but that is a fable, and I am usually more drawn towards realism, so that's why I chose Panenka over Ghost Mountain. Panenka is supposed to be an introspective novel about redemption, community, and second chances. It follows Joseph, nicknamed Panenka after a mistake he made in his football career that led to his public disgrace and really shaped his life after that. He's in his 50s, he faces serious health condition, and he seeks now reconciliation with his estranged daughter. I am hoping that similarly to Leonard and Hungry Paul, the novel will be capturing the beauty of ordinary lives and the power of connection. Number 12 is The Safekeep by Yael van der Wouden. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Apologies. This was shortlisted for Women's Prize for Fiction in 2024. By the way, I'm not typically a reader who picks their books based on awards. As crazy as it sounds, I'm not sure they can be always trusted. I mean, books are such a personal, such a subjective thing, right? But since Brotherless Night became my favorite book of 2024, and it happened to be also the winner of Women's Prize for Fiction, I now trust Women's Prize for Fiction awards a little bit more than the others, if that makes sense. And for those of you who don't know, Women's Prize for Fiction was established in the UK to promote women's voices in the literature and to improve the balance between the coverage male authors and female authors were receiving. It is a charity. I think there are 5 female judges, and since 2023 they also introduced a second award for non-fiction, and anyone can submit their novel. It doesn't matter which country you reside in, what nationality you are, race, age. I think the only criteria there is just that you need to write in English. So going back to The Safekeep, this is a 1960s Netherlands set novel about Isabel, a reserved woman whose life is disrupted when her brother's girlfriend comes to stay. And there are supposed to be themes of personal identity, sexual awakening, and also the aftermath of WW2. I have heard lots of good things about this book, and I am very much intrigued. Then number 13, I also don't have a copy of yet, but it's The Bee Sting by Paul Murrey. This was a very popular book here in the UK. I think it'll be a great summer read because it sounds like something a bit lighter, something a bit funnier. We follow lives of a family in a small Irish town, and we have themes of family dynamics, personal failure, and the struggle to maintain integrity in times of adversity. Sounds really interesting to me. Again, this has been on my radar for a while, so I think 2025 is the year when I'll finally reach for it. Number 14, I'm very excited about because this is a family saga. It's called The Family Lexicon, and it is by an Italian author, Natalia Ginzburg. Written in 1963, this is a memoir-like novel that follows the life of an eccentric family in the years leading up to and during WW2. It is set against the backdrop of fascist Italy, which I have not read much about, and the book explores themes of family dynamics during tumultuous era. I feel I have not read a proper hardcore family saga, which I love, for a very long time, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Now for number 15, we have Daughters of Shandong. This one will depend if I can get my hands on a copy of the book, because I don't think it's been published in the UK. And now when I was looking to order this book, it was showing me a very long lead time, and the price was also quite high. Let me read you the blurb on it. It is a propulsive, extraordinary novel about a mother and her daughter's harrowing escape to Taiwan as the Communist Revolution sweeps through China. This sounds really interesting to me, especially that this is based on the author's family-owned story. And also, I have not read anything on the civil war in China, so I'm looking forward to reading this book. Next, we have a book titled I Am Homeless If This Is Not My Home by Lorrie. This one I came across on Waterstone's website, which is here in the UK equivalent to Barnes and Noble in the US. And one of the reviewers said that this book single-handedly restored his faith in American contemporary fiction. I don't know much about this book other than it is supposed to be beautifully written, and it follows a middle-aged history teacher who embarks on a road trip. I do want to read more American contemporary fiction, so this goes onto my list. Number 12 is A Little Life. I think everyone has read this book by now, and so all I have to do is find the right time to read it, as in find the right time to be absolutely devastated. I also have on my list The Wolf Hall. I found a copy recently in the charity store, and I'm very excited about reading it. Again, need to find the right moment. Next is Rachel Kask. I want to tackle her in 2025. I have her outline, although I have heard someone talking about her non-fiction on motherhood, which is supposed to be excellent. And I am quite intrigued by that. But still, I think I will start with this one just because I have a copy of it. I also plan to read one of the books by Christine Hanna. I love historical fiction. I'm just not sure whether I will start with The Women or The Nightingale, but it will be definitely one of those two. Let me know if you have any thoughts. And next year is definitely the year when I will read work by Fredrik Backman. I haven't read anything by him yet, and the book I'll probably reach for will be Anxious People, because I want to start with his standalone books as opposed to the Bertan series. And also because I just happen to have a copy of it. I basically gave this book to my husband for Christmas, which you can see a bit of a theme emerging here, don't you? I gave Project Hail Mary to my son. I'm giving Anxious People to my husband. Basically, if you are interested in a book, give it to someone, ideally someone who lives in the same household as you, so then you can read it too. Kidding aside, my husband and I watched the movie A Man Called Uvo recently, which is based on the book by Backman, and both my husband and I absolutely loved the film. And I remember thinking, if the movie is this good, the book must have been amazing. So I thought it would be fun to introduce my husband to Backman's other works, and Anxious People supposed to be a very heartfelt and humorous tale. It is about a failed bank robbery which turns into this sort of accidental hostage situation, and it reveals the hidden struggles and connections between a group of strangers. Talking about TV adaptations, I would also like to read All the Lights We Cannot See, because I really want to see the Netflix adaptation of it, but I don't want to do it before reading the book. At number 21, we have Anything is Possible by Elizabeth Strout. Her book, My Name is Lucy Barton, was in my Best of 2024 video, and this one is supposed to be the book you read next after My Name is Lucy Barton. Then I also want to read Never Let Me Go by Kazuro Ishiguro. I read The Remains of the Day last year, and I know this one is supposed to be very different novel because it's set in the future, I think, but I love his writing, so I'm looking forward to reading it. And also it has been talked about so much and has received so much praise. I hope it will not disappoint. And finally, because I want to read more American fiction, I am also putting on my list a very much loved and very popular Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg. That's it. I am sure the list will be subject to some reshuffle throughout the year. As you know, I have this serious condition where I cannot help myself when it comes to public libraries. Apparently, I am not capable of just walking by one not walking inside and leaving empty-handed. So I am fully aware that my reading list will be altered, and that's okay. Look out for my next video on classics that I want to tackle next year, and dare I say, I am actually even more excited about the classics than the fiction. These last 2 months of 2024 were quite classics heavy for me. I've read Wuthering Heights, I've read Pride and Prejudice, I've read Of Mice and Men, I've read 1984, and all of that reading has kind of renewed enthusiasm and appreciation for classics for me. So I want to utilize on that feeling while it lasts. So yes, I'm looking forward to chatting to you about that next week. See you then.